Last couple of years have been traumatic, really. Lost my father a couple of years ago, which, you know, sons should bury their fathers. It's the right way around. God is in his heaven. All is right with the world. He was old. He'd had a good life. So, not unexpected at the age of 91, right? And, but, you know, sad all the same. But then very sadly, within a year, I lost my sister also, who was only 65, just approaching bloody retirement age, on this delayed government retirement plan. So she had stoically borne breast cancer for 10 years, which she'd had treated, had gone into remission, but then had returned, and she was being treated for again. I mentioned none of this to any of us except her twin, and only when she had reached the point where she was no longer treatable had she decided she should mention it to the family. So that was a difficult few months. I was at work when she told me, which, as you can imagine, led to some quite hard cycling. And then when I came home on leave, I spent as much time as I could with her, and got my children, who love her dearly, to spend as much time as they could with her. And then went back to work, had 6 weeks at work, and she was still alive when I got home, but not for long, let's say. I managed to see her one last time. And unbeknownst to me, you know, I work away 6 weeks at a time. The guys I work with, very close with, guys I work with have, know what's going on in my life as much as I know what's going on in theirs. And we, have supported each other. So good old Joseph, who's my deputy and ops manager, had been complaining about a bad back when he got back from leave. He'd been to see the doctor, and the doc had given him, told him to just take ibuprofen, probably done a rib or something. And that got progressively worse during the course of the rotation. And when he left a few days before me, came to see me and just said, "Sorry for being a miserable bastard. My back is really hurting. I'm going to get myself sorted out when I get back." That was on the Wednesday. Saturday, he rang me to say, "I've got cancer. Lungs, brain, spine." And again, as my sister was a stoic, so Joseph was also a supremely positive man and a fighter. And said, if I can get 5 years, I'll be happy. And then later, not much later, when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, if I can get a year, I'll be happy. And then, if I can just get out of hospital, I'll be happy. And not to go on, but from diagnosis to passing away was only, I think, 3 months. Very quick. Excuse me. So we did a lot of fundraising. His colleagues at work from Garda World, our security company, and from the client side, I think we raised about £18,000 for him. Firm did very little, bastards. But collectively, his old mates and his team really chipped in. And I think that was a fantastic effort. And I did, not then, but later, 6 months later, I did a charity ride for UK cancer research. Really in honour of my father, my sister and Joseph. And I decided to do 200 miles around the British Embassy, Baghdad. I'll tell you what it was. The UK Cancer Research were running a campaign, fundraising campaign, and say ride 200 miles in March for UK Cancer Research. So I thought, I'll do that, but I'll make it a little more challenging and I do it all in one day. And so that's what I did. I set off at midnight. This is March 2025, last year. Set off at midnight at the British Embassy, Baghdad. Was cheered by the clients coming out of the bar after midnight as I set off, and basically rode on and off for the next 21 hours. I think I finished at 9 o'clock at night. Now, it doesn't take 21 hours to ride 200 miles, but I did stop for breakfast, lunch and tea. I stopped to take on enormous amounts of fluids through the day, and coffee and salt and this, that and the other. And anyway, I made it, I cracked it. It was quite funny. The same people cheering me on the night before were still there, cheering me on as I finished. Not still there, but having gone, had a full night of sleep and work and back to the bar. Over there cheering me on again at the end. So that was good. Kind of nails. And I'd seen the UK Audax group on Facebook. I'd had a look at the UK Audax website, and I joined the Facebook group. Although I'd never done an Audax, I'm interested in cycling a long way slowly, and that's essentially what UK Audax is all about. What Audaxing is all about. It's about cycling a long way slowly, but not actually that slow, as I found out when I did my first proper Audax. Can't let these guys go. So I joined the UK Audax group to get advice and hints and tips on cycling long distances, and it was useful for that. I didn't actually think about taking up or joining UK Audax until much later when I came back to the UK, and I think it was June, July time, where I finally signed up. And what I did last year, having done that 200 miles, I've got a very good mate, known him for 30 odd years, 20 odd years, 25 years, who turned 50, and he wanted to do something to mark his 50th and the length of our enduring friendship. And he had proposed skiing, which would have been good, only he skis and I don't, and I can't afford to have another 3 months off work fixing a broken leg. So I proposed that we cycle again, did that route again from London to Geneva, and he was all up for it. So we did that in August, but we did it much faster. We left London at 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon, I think it was 2. Again, cycled to Newhaven, and then this time, rather than going through Paris, we skirted north of Paris, and then followed the banks of the Seine or the Loire. I'll have to check again. Follow the banks of the river all the way around, finally picking up the same route that I'd done previously at the at that place where the Tour de France was. What was the name? Poligny. At Poligny. Finally picking up the route at Poligny, and then again over the mountains and in. And what I did was a load of training in May, June, July, once we got that booked in, to make sure that I could enjoy the experience and not just endure it, and that I could keep up with my mate Matty, because he is not quite, but almost 10 years younger, much fitter than me, which he's earned. He works super hard, and he's a club cyclist, so he's really into his cycling. And I wanted to be like, I knew I was never going to be faster or better or more powerful than him, and it's not about that. It was just about being able to keep up without crying and without delaying in too much. And so it transpired, so it worked out, you know. My fitness and his patience just about stretched to meet for a happy 5 days of cycling, happy 5 days of cycling. It was really cool. We got into Geneva. He beat me in by a few hours. We got into Geneva on the Friday afternoon, so I reckon it took us 4 days and 6 hours. That took me 4 days and 6 hours. I managed to lose my passport on the way there, somewhere in France. So I had to stay for a Brucey bonus extra couple of days in Geneva, and then go over to Bern to collect an emergency travel document from the FCO, who I've got to say were very responsive and very quick. And a delightful lady working in Bern gave me my passport on the Monday morning so I could get a flight back, 3 days delayed from Geneva to UK, but got home. That was a great trip. We'll perhaps cover that one another time. But I trained really hard for that trip, and I trained in my own way, doing increasing amounts of endurance training and a bit of high intensity work. I got it in my mind that I really wanted to do some ultras next year, probably, and maybe something a bit epic in the course of the year. So I was watching a bit of YouTube with a guy that was doing an ultra, and he brought his coach on to chat, and I thought the coach looked really like a really nice guy, a really sensible guy. So I reached out to him, we had a conversation. Anyway, I find myself now being coached by a Ram tandem winner and a Ram finisher, Italian chap, Giovanni Prospero, who does a great job of keeping me calm. Who's very much about making sure that slow days and rest days are restful and slow, to ensure that you have the energy for the high power days. And I've really enjoyed the process and the progress. So I've been working away for 8 weeks at a time, a month at home, 8 weeks at a time, a month at home. And that sits in quite nicely, really nicely, with a periodized training program. And basically Gio's had my 2 months away to do with what he wants. And he populates my diary on Training Peaks with with training sessions. And we've been doing, like, every week a couple of endurance sessions, 3 or 4 hours at a time, Friday and Saturday, back to back. In the gym in Baghdad. You can't really ride outside there. Pollution's awful, traffic's awful. Let me just stop and check the map.